Adaugo, the Enchantress of Umuoma. The heart of Umuoma village, there lived a woman whose beauty defied explanation. Adaugo was no ordinary woman. Her beauty seemed to grow with each passing day. Men, young and old, fell helplessly under her spell. They spoke of her eyes, which shone like the stars, and her smile, which could melt the hardest heart. But while they worshipped her, they had no idea that beneath that flawless exterior, a terrible secret. Adaugo's beauty came at a price the men of Umuoma would soon pay dearly for. One evening, the village square buzzed with excitement. Adaugo had just walked in, and as always, the men swarmed around her. Obinna, the strongest man in the village, carried her basket goods without being asked. Emeka, the wealthy palm wine tapper, had prepared the finest keg of wine just for her. Even Chike, the village priest's son, couldn't help but stutter nervously as he offered her gifts of fruit. As Adaugo smiled graciously at each man, the village women watched from the sidelines, their jealousy barely hidden. There was something strange happening in Umuoma, something that no one could explain. For months now, the men who adored Adaugo had been falling ill, growing weaker and weaker with each passing day. Some whispered that it was the work of bad spirits. Others said it was just coincidence. But Nze Ikenna, the oldest and wisest man in the village, knew better. He had been watching Adaugo for a long time, and he had seen enough to be suspicious. That evening, as the sun began to set and the air grew heavier with tension, Ikenna made his way to the square. His walking stick tapped rhythmically against the ground, and the chatter of the men died down as he approached. Adaugo, he called out in a voice that echoed through the square. Adaugo turned slowly, eyes narrowing. Nze Ikenna, to what do I owe this honor? She asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm.
Looked between Adaugo and Nze Ikenna, confused. Why was the old man confronting her? Hadn't she done nothing but bring beauty and joy to the village? But Nze Ikenna wasn't fooled by her charm. You held this village in your grasp for too long, he said, his voice steady but filled with tension. These men don't know it, but you have been using them, draining their life force to maintain your beauty. Haven't you, Adaugo? The square fell into a stunned silence. The men stared at Nze Ikenna, their faces filled with confusion and disbelief. Obinna stepped forward, his voice shaking with anger. What are you saying, old man? Adaugo is the most beautiful woman in this world. She would never hurt us. Adaugo chuckled softly, her eyes gleaming with amusement. Oh, Nze Ikenna, always full of surprises. Do you really expect anyone to believe such nonsense stories? But Nze Ikenna wasn't deterred. He raised his walking stick, pointing it directly at Adaugo. I know what you are, he said, his voice filled with suspense and glowing intensity. You are not just a woman. You are an enchantress, bound to the kingdom of Ndimma. Every 3 months, you must drain the life force of men to keep your beauty. And these men, these fools, have been your prey. The men's faces spelled as the words sunk in them. Emeka, his voice shaky, asked, Adaugo, is this true? Adaugo's smile waved for just a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. Don't be ridiculous. This old man is just trying to cause confusion. But the men could no longer ignore the strange exhaustions that had been plaguing them for months. Obinna, who had once been the strongest man in the village, now felt weak and tired. Emeka, once full of life, had barely the strength to lift his own wine jug. They exchanged worried glances, tension tickling in the air. Nze Ikenna slammed his walking stick into the ground, and the air around them seemed to ripple with a strange energy. You can't hide the truth any longer, Adaugo, he shouted, his voice booming. Review yourself, or I will force you to. Adaugo's eyes flashed dangerously, and for the first time, fear flickered across her face. The wind began to swirl around her, and the ground beneath her feet trembled. Her once beautiful face twisted into something darker, something unnatural. Her eyes, once warm and inviting, now glowed with a cold, sinister light. You old fool, she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. You have no idea what you've just done. With a sharp, chilling laugh, Adaugo raised her arms, and a dark mist began to rise from the ground. The men, now fully aware of the danger, tried to run back away, but it was too late. The mist wrapped around them, and they felt their energy being pulled from their bodies faster and more forcefully than ever before. The men gasped in confusion, terror gripping their hearts. What's happening to us? Obinna cried out, clutching his chest. Adaugo's laughter echoed through the square, chilling them to the bone. Fools, you thought I loved you? You thought your gifts matters? You were nothing but pawns in my game. Your life force is mine now. As the mist grew darker and men grew weaker, Nzeikenna gripped his walking stick and began to chant in a language long forgotten. The ground beneath Adaugo split open, and from a crack, a blinding light shot up, illuminating the square. No! Adaugo screamed, her voice filled with both rage and fear. She tried to resist, but the force pulling her down was too strong. The mist began to dissipate, and the men, though weak, watched in confusion and horror as Adaugo's face, once beautiful form, began to disintegrate before their eyes. Her flawless skin turned pale and cracked, her hair withered and her eyes dulled. In seconds, she was no longer the radiant beauty they had worshipped, but a haggard, twisted version of herself. Nzeikenna, his voice steady, completed the chant. Your time is up, Adaugo. Return to the kingdom of Indima and face the judgment of your masters. With one final scream, Adaugo was pulled into the earth, disappearing into the crack with a deafening roar. The ground sealed itself, and the village square was silent once more. Men, trembling and gasping for breath, looked at Nzeikenna, their faces filled with confusion and disbelief. Obinna, his voice barely above a whisper, asked, What just happened? Nzeikenna sighed deeply, expression solemn but relieved. We were under her spell, but now it's over. The tension slowly began to dissipate, but the men were left shaking, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that they had been deceived. As they made their way, they couldn't help but feel the weight of Adaugo's betrayal. And from that day on, men of Umuoma learned a hard lesson. Loyalty can be a dangerous thing, and sometimes the sweetest smile hides the darkest secret.